3.5 weeks later, the Aurora's Edge arrived at the Kepler 442 system. Jake stood on the bridge, looking at the main screen as their destination grew larger. The third planet from the star looked green and blue, like Earth. But something felt wrong. "I'm picking up structures on the surface," Lisa said, studying her instruments. "Looks like buildings and farming areas." Jake felt his heart skip. "Human settlements?" "Some of them look human," Sam said, checking his own screens. "But there are other buildings, too. Different style, not human at all." Alex joined them on the bridge, his face serious. "Commander, I'm detecting at least 12 large ships in orbit around the planet. They're not human design." Jake studied the screen. The planet below had patches of green that looked like farms, and clusters of buildings that could be towns. But mixed in with them were strange, dark structures that hurt to look at. And those ships in orbit were huge, with twisted shapes that seemed wrong somehow. "Any response to our signals?" Jake asked Sam. "Nothing from the ships. But I'm still picking up that distress signal from the planet. It's stronger now." "Can you tell where it's coming from?" Sam worked at his controls for several minutes. "Northern continent. Looks like it's coming from underground." Jake made his decision. "We're going down. Alex, prep the shuttle. Lisa, find us a landing spot away from those alien ships. Sam, keep monitoring all frequencies." 20 minutes later, Jake was walking down the shuttle's ramp onto alien soil. With him were Tony Brooks, their Marine sergeant, and Karen White, the ship's medic. Tony was a big man with muscles like steel and eyes that missed nothing. Karen was small but tough, with gentle hands and a fierce heart. The air smelled strange. Not bad, just different. Like flowers Jake had never seen mixed with something metallic. The ground under their feet was purple grass that felt spongy when they walked on it. "This way," Tony said, checking his scanner. "I'm picking up human life signs about 2 miles north." They walked through what had once been farmland. Jake could see where humans had planted crops and built irrigation systems, but now the fields were torn up and strange black towers stood among the ruined plants. The towers hummed with energy that made Jake's teeth ache. "Look at this," Karen said, kneeling by what looked like a children's playground. The swings hung broken, and the slide was cracked down the middle. But worst of all were the scorch marks on the ground, as if something very hot had burned the earth. They kept walking. Soon they found the remains of a human settlement. The houses were small and simple, built for families, but most of them were damaged. Doors hung open, windows were broken, and personal belongings lay scattered in the dirt. "Commander," Tony called from inside one of the houses, "you need to see this." Jake entered the house. The furniture was overturned, and there were deep scratches in the walls. But what made Jake's stomach turn were the pictures on the broken table. Family photos showing a man, woman, and 2 young children smiling at the camera. Normal, happy. Humans who had somehow ended up over 1,000 light years from Earth. "How did they get here?" Karen whispered. "I don't know," Jake said. "But someone brought them here, and someone else took them away." Tony's scanner beeped. "Life signs, 1/2 a mile ahead. Underground." They followed Tony through the ruined settlement and into a forest of purple trees. The trees were tall and beautiful, but their shadows felt cold. As they walked deeper into the woods, Jake noticed more scorch marks and signs of fighting. Finally, Tony stopped beside what looked like a large rock. But when Jake looked closer, He saw it was actually a hidden entrance covered with dirt and branches. "Hello?" Jake called softly. "Is anyone there? We're humans from Earth. We heard your signal." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the rock moved, revealing a tunnel entrance. A face appeared in the darkness. A young girl with dirty blonde hair and frightened blue eyes. "Are you real?" the girl whispered. "Or are you the shadow people pretending again?" Jake's heart broke. The girl looked about 8 years old, and she was so thin he could see her bones through her skin. "We're real. We're here to help. What's your name?" "Emma," the girl said. "Emma Carter. Are you really from Earth? From the real Earth?" "Yes, we are. Can we come down? We want to help you." Emma looked scared, but she nodded. "Okay, but be quiet. The shadow people have good hearing." They climbed down into the tunnel. It led to a large underground room lit by small electric lights. And what Jake saw there made him want to cry and rage at the same time. There were over 30 people in the room. Most were children, though a few were adults. They were all thin and dirty and scared. They huddled together like frightened animals, their eyes wide with fear and hope. An older woman stepped forward. She looked like she might have been a teacher before whatever happened here. "I'm Betty Davis," she said. "Are you really from Earth?" "Yes," Jake said. "How did you get here? How long have you been here?" 3 years, Betty said, tears starting to fall. "We were on the colony ship Bright Future, heading for Kepler 438, but something went wrong with our navigation. We ended up here instead. At first, we thought we were lucky. The planet seemed perfect for humans." "What happened?" Karen asked gently. Emma spoke up, her small voice filling the quiet room. "The shadow people came. They have big ships and they look like nightmares. They took Mama and Papa and lots of other people. They said humans make good workers and good food." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. "Food? They eat some of us," Betty said quietly. "The rest they make work in the mines or on their ships. We've been hiding here for 8 months, ever since the last big raid." Tony was checking his scanner again. "Commander, I'm picking up movement above ground. Something big, heading this way." Jake looked at the frightened faces around him. 37 humans, most of them children, hiding underground while aliens hunted them like animals. Emma was the one whose voice had somehow reached across space to call for help. "How many people did they take?" Jake asked. "Over 400 from our ship," Betty said. "But Emma says there were other groups here before us, other humans from other ships." Emma nodded. "The shadow people have been taking humans for a long time. They have big prisons full of people from lots of different places." Jake knelt down so he was at Emma's eye level. "Emma, your signal reached us across space. That's how we found you. You called for help, and we came." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I just kept talking to the radio, hoping someone would hear. I told them about Mama and Papa and how hungry we are. I didn't think anyone was listening." "Someone was always listening," Jake said softly. "And now we're going to get you out of here." But even as he said it, Jake knew it wouldn't be easy. His ship only had weapons for defense, not for fighting a whole alien fleet. And there were hundreds of humans scattered across this system. Prisoners of creatures that saw them as nothing more than food and slaves. Above ground, something roared in the distance. The shadow people were coming back. And Jake realized that saving these people was going to take more than one small ship and 4 brave humans. It was going to take something much bigger. It was going to take Earth. Jake stared at the ceiling of the underground hideout, thinking hard. Above them, He could hear the sounds of alien ships searching the forest. The shadow people knew humans were hiding somewhere, and they were getting closer. "How many ships do they have?" Jake asked Betty quietly. 12 big ones in space," she said, "plus smaller ones that come down to hunt us. They have weapons that can burn through rock." Jake did the math in his head. His ship had basic shields and 1 plasma cannon. The alien fleet could destroy the Aurora's Edge in seconds, but he couldn't just leave these people here. "Tony," he whispered to his Marine, "how long would it take to get back to our shuttle?" 20 minutes if we run," Tony said. "But, Commander, we can't fit all these people in our shuttle." Jake looked around the room. 37 frightened faces stared back at him. Most were children, some as young as 5 or 6. They trusted him to save them, but he only had 1 small ship. Emma tugged on his sleeve. "Mr. Jake, are you going to leave us too?" The question hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. "No, Emma, we're not leaving you. But I need to get word to Earth. They need to know what's happening here." "Earth is so far away," Betty said sadly. "Even if you could call them, help would take years to get here." "Maybe," Jake said. "But we have to try." He made his decision. They would have to split up. Someone needed to stay with the survivors while someone else got back to the ship to send a message to Earth. "Karen, I need you to stay here with these people. Help them however you can. Tony, you're with me. We're going back to the ship." "What about me?" Emma asked. Jake knelt down beside her. "I need you to do something very important. You got a message across space once before. Can you show Karen how you did it?" Emma nodded seriously. "I can show her the radio. It's hidden in the old school building." "Good girl." "Karen, see if you can boost Emma's signal. Keep calling for help. Someone might hear you." They said their goodbyes quickly. Jake promised Emma he would come back with help, and she promised to keep everyone safe until he did. Tony led the way back through the tunnel while Jake took one last look at the frightened faces in the underground room. The run back to the shuttle was dangerous. Twice they had to hide while alien search craft flew overhead. The ships looked like giant insects made of black metal, with red lights that swept the ground looking for humans. When they finally reached their shuttle, Jake was breathing hard. "Get us back to the ship as fast as you can," he told Tony. 20 minutes later, they were back aboard the Aurora's Edge. Sam was waiting for them on the bridge, his face worried. "Commander, those alien ships have been trying to scan us. Our shields are holding, but they know we're here." "How long before they decide to attack?" Jake asked. "Hard to say. Maybe hours, maybe minutes." Jake ran to the communication station. "Sam, I need you to set up a quantum relay to Earth. Use all our power if you have to." "Sir, that will drain our batteries. If those aliens attack after we send the message, we won't have power for shields or weapons." "Do it anyway. This message is more important than our lives." While Sam worked on the relay, Jake sat down to record the most important message he had ever sent. He thought about his own children back on Earth, and about Emma and all the other children hiding in the darkness below. "Alex," he called to his engineer, "start recording everything. I want cameras on those alien ships, on the planet's surface, on everything. We need proof." For the next 2 hours, they gathered evidence. Alex's cameras captured images of the alien ships and the strange structures on the planet. Jake interviewed Tony about what they had seen in the underground hideout. They recorded Emma's original distress signal and enhanced it so every word was clear. Most importantly, they documented the destroyed human settlements and the signs of struggle. Jake wanted Earth to see exactly what had happened to their people. Finally, Sam announced that the quantum relay was ready. I've got a connection to Earth Command. Signal strength is weak, but it should get through. Jake took a deep breath and began his message. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the exploration vessel Aurora's Edge, calling Earth Command. We are in the Kepler 442 system, approximately 1,200 light-years from Earth. We have discovered a human colony under attack by hostile aliens. He paused, thinking about how to explain the impossible situation. The colony appears to be survivors from the lost ship Bright Future, which disappeared 3 years ago. However, there is evidence that aliens have been capturing humans from multiple ships for much longer. Over 50,000 humans may have been enslaved or killed. Jake's voice grew harder as he continued. These aliens, which the survivors call shadow people, treat humans as slaves and food. They have taken prisoners to other systems. Children are hiding underground while their parents are worked to death or eaten. He uploaded all their evidence, the photos, the recordings, Emma's distress signal. Everything Earth needed to understand. What was happening? I am requesting immediate military assistance. Our ship cannot fight an entire alien fleet. But we cannot abandon these people. There are 37 survivors hiding on the planet's surface, including many children. More prisoners are being held throughout this system. Jake thought about Emma's frightened face and made his final request. Earth Command. These people called for help across impossible distances. And we answered. Now we're calling for help too. Don't let them die alone. Morrison out. Sam sent the message racing across space toward Earth. At light speed, it would take over 1,000 years to arrive. But through the quantum relay, it would reach Earth in just a few hours. Message sent, Sam reported. But Commander, our power levels are critical. If those aliens attack now... I know, Jake said, but we did what we had to do. On Earth, Admiral Lucy Grant was working late in her office at Terra Command when the message arrived. She was a tall woman with gray hair and steel blue eyes who had spent 40 years protecting humanity. When she saw Jake's message, she immediately called an emergency meeting. Within hours, President Maria Santos was watching the recordings from Kepler 442. The evidence was clear and horrifying. Humans were being hunted, enslaved, and eaten by aliens over 1,000 light-years from home. Director Pete Collins of the Colonial Defense Force studied the tactical data. We need to mobilize everything we have, he told the president. This isn't just a rescue mission. This is war. Back on the Aurora's Edge, Jake was making plans to return to the planet's surface when alarms began to sound. Commander, Lisa called from her station. The alien ships are moving. They're coming toward us. Jake looked at the main screen. All 12 alien ships were turning in their direction, their weapons charging with red light. Well, he said quietly, at least the message got through. But as the alien ships approached, something unexpected happened. Sam's communications board lit up with new signals. Commander, I'm getting messages from the planet. Not just Emma's. Signal. There are dozens of them. Hidden groups of humans all over the system. They heard our transmission to Earth, and now they're all calling for help. Jake smiled grimly. Emma's cry for help hadn't just reached the Aurora's Edge. It had started something bigger. Now every human in the system was calling out, and their voices were traveling together across space toward Earth. The aliens could kill them all, but it was too late to stop the message. Earth would know what happened here, and Earth would come. On Earth, Admiral Lucy Grant stood in the largest meeting room in Terra Command. Around her sat the most powerful people in human space, presidents, generals, scientists, and shipbuilders. On the main screen, Emma's voice played over and over, again calling for help across the impossible distance of space. "Please help us. They took Mama and Papa, so hungry. Please find us." The room was silent except for the child's frightened voice. When the recording ended, President Maria Santos spoke first. "How many ships can we build in 6 months?" she asked. General Ryan Clark, a big man with scars on his face from the Mars Rebellion, looked at his notes. "With every shipyard working full-time, maybe 800 combat ships?" "Not enough," said Dr. Helen Ross, the head of military research. She was a small woman with wild gray hair and eyes that never stopped moving. "The data from Commander Morrison shows at least 12 alien ships in just that one system. Intelligence suggests the enemy controls over 50 star systems." Admiral Grant studied the tactical displays. "Then we don't build 800 ships. We build 3,000. The room erupted in arguments. Building that many ships would take every resource humanity had. It would bankrupt entire worlds and require drafting millions of workers. President Santos raised her hand for silence. "Show the recording again." Emma's voice filled the room once more. This time, when it ended, no one spoke for a long moment. "That child is one of ours," the president said quietly. "Every human in alien hands is one of ours. We don't leave our people behind. Ever." Within hours, the order went out. Every human world would contribute ships, soldiers, and resources. The United Nations of Earth declared a state of total war against what they called the Zephyrian Collective, named after their home system. Dr. Ross took charge of the weapons program. Using data from Commander Morrison's scans, her teams worked day and night to understand alien technology. They developed new plasma cannons, better shields, and something they called planet crackers, weapons that could break apart entire worlds. General Clark began training the largest army in human history. 2 million Marines would be needed for the liberation operations. They trained not just to fight, but to rescue prisoners and treat traumatized civilians. The shipyards of Earth, Mars, and Europa worked without stopping. New designs were built in weeks instead of years. The massive Dreadnought-class ships were armed with enough firepower to destroy alien fleets. Stealth frigates were designed to slip past enemy defenses and rescue prisoners. And the terrible planet crackers were built in secret, weapons of last resort. Meanwhile, far out in space, Jake Morrison was playing a deadly game of hide-and-seek. The Aurora's edge had barely escaped the alien attack by hiding in the planet's magnetic field. For 3 months, they had been running rescue missions, using Emma as their guide. Emma had grown braver during those months. She knew every hiding place on the planet and could move through the ruins of the human settlements without being seen. More importantly, she could talk to the other hidden groups and convince them to trust Jake's team. "There are 6 more children in the old mine. Shaft," Emma told Jake as they planned their next mission. "But the Shadow people have patrols there every day. We'll wait for them to pass, then move in fast," Jake said. "Karen, make sure you have medical supplies ready. Tony, scout the area first." They had rescued over 200 people so far, keeping them hidden in a network of underground shelters. But Jake knew it was a losing battle. The aliens were getting smarter, using better sensors and more patrols. Worse, they had intercepted alien communications that revealed the truth. The Zephyrian Collective had been capturing humans for over 50 years. There were human slaves in dozens of star systems working in mines, farms, and factories. Some were used for medical experiments. Others were raised like cattle for food. Tio, Total number of enslaved humans was over $300,000. Jake recorded everything and sent regular updates to Earth through the quantum relay. Each message took more power from their failing systems, but he knew Earth needed the intelligence. On Earth, Admiral Grant received every report. She studied the maps of collective space and the locations of human prisoners. The scale of the enemy's crimes grew larger with each message. "They've been hunting us for 50 years, she told President Santos during one of their daily briefings. "Taking our colony ships, capturing our explorers, stealing our children, and we never knew." "How many ships do we have ready now?" The President asked. 2,800. They're gathering at the staging area near Alpha Centauri. Another 200 will be ready next week. President Santos looked tired. The war effort was draining Earth's resources and the stress was showing on everyone. But there was no choice. Humanity had to respond. "When do we leave?" "As soon as we have 3,000 ships," Admiral Grant said. "The fleet commanders are ready. General Clark's Marines are trained. Dr. Ross says the new weapons are tested and working." The president nodded. "Send a message to the collective, give them one chance to surrender." The message was broadcast on all frequencies toward collective. Space. It was simple and direct. To the Zephyrian collective, "You have captured and enslaved our people for decades. You have treated humans as animals and food. This ends now. Release all human prisoners immediately. Return them to neutral space unharmed. Submit your leadership for trial as war criminals. You have 30 days to comply. Refuse and face the consequences. This is your only warning." Deep in collective space, High Overlord Zethkar received the human message in his throne room on Zephyr Prime. He was an ancient being, tall and thin, with skin like black leather, and eyes like burning coals. Around him stood his war council, creatures from a dozen conquered species. Zethkar laughed when he heard the human demands. "These soft mammals think they can threaten us. We have ruled this region of space for 1,000 years. We have crushed dozens of species stronger than these humans." His military commander, a creature with 4 arms and armor made of living metal, studied the tactical data. "My lord, our scouts report a large human fleet gathering in their space. Perhaps we should consider their offer." "Never." Zethkar's voice echoed through the chamber. "Humans are valuable slaves and delicious food. We will not give up our property because they send us angry messages. Double the harvesting quotas. Take more human ships. Show them what happens when they threaten." The collective. Back on Kepler 442, Jake received news of the ultimatum through his regular communication with Earth. He gathered his crew and the rescued survivors to share the news. "Earth is coming," he told them. "The largest fleet in human history is on its way." Emma, now wearing clean clothes and looking healthier after months of regular food, asked the question everyone was thinking. "Will they get here in time?" Jake looked at the little girl who had started it all with her cry for help across space. "They'll get here, Emma. And when they do, the Shadow People are going to learn something important about humans." "What's that?" Emma asked. Jake smiled, but his eyes were hard as steel. "We protect our children, no matter what." In space above them, alien patrol ships continued their hunts. But soon, very soon, they would face something they had never encountered before. They would face the full fury of humanity, awakened by the cry of one small child who refused to give up hope. The universe was about to learn that some species should never be made angry. And the collective had just made the worst mistake in their 1,000-year history. They had threatened human children. The human liberation fleet arrived at the edge of collective space like a storm made of metal and fire. 3,000 ships moved in perfect formation, from massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets to swift rescue ships designed to save prisoners. At the fleet's center, Admiral Lucy Grant stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Vengeance, watching her enemy's space grow larger on the screen. Long-range sensors show collective fleets massing at their border worlds, reported Captain Scott Miller, her tactical officer. They're not running. Good, Admiral Grant said quietly. I want them to fight. I want them to understand what they've awakened. The first battle came at a mining system called Drakmor, where human slaves worked. In underground tunnels, the collective had positioned 200 ships to defend the system, confident their superior technology would stop the human attack. They were wrong. The human fleet hit them like a hammer. New weapons designed by Dr. Ross tore through alien. Shields as if they were paper. Ships that had terrorized dozens of species for centuries exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, every collective ship was destroyed or fleeing. But Admiral Grant wasn't finished. She sent General Clark's Marines down to the planet's surface with specific orders: save every human and show no mercy to their captors. The Marines found over 10,000 human slaves in the mines. Men, women, and children who had been captured from dozens of different colony ships over the years. They were thin and scared, but alive. The aliens guarding them tried to fight, but human soldiers were faster, stronger, and much more angry. Any aliens who surrender will be taken prisoner for trial, General Clark announced over the communications network. Any who resist will be eliminated. Any who harm human prisoners will be eliminated slowly. The collective forces chose to fight. It was a mistake. System after system fell to the human advance. At Korvax Prime, Captain Beth Taylor led a precision strike that freed 50,000 human prisoners from labor camps. At Nexus Station, Commander Dan Foster's stealth ships rescued children who were being raised as food animals. Each victory made the humans more determined and more angry. The evidence of collective cruelty was everywhere. Humans forced to fight each other for entertainment. Children separated from their parents and sold to the highest bidder. Medical experiments that would give nightmares to anyone who saw them. Admiral Grant sent regular reports back to Earth, including recordings and photos of what they found. President Santos shared some of the evidence with the public, carefully edited to show the truth without breaking people's minds. The response was immediate. More ships, more soldiers, more weapons. Earth's industrial machine worked at levels never seen before. High Overlord Zethkar watched his empire crumble from his palace on Zephyr Prime. System after system reported the same story. Human fleets arriving without warning, alien defenses crushed in hours, all human prisoners freed, and every collective soldier dead or captured. They fight like demons, his military commander reported, his forearms shaking with fear. Their ships coordinate perfectly. Their soldiers show no fear, and their weapons, my lord, they have weapons that can destroy planets. Impossible, Zethkar hissed. No species has such power. But the reports kept coming. The humans weren't just winning battles. They were systematically destroying everything the collective had built. Space stations were blown apart, factory worlds were shut down, trade routes were blockaded. Entire sectors went dark as human ships cut off all communication, and always the same message was broadcast on all frequencies. Release our people, return what you have stolen, submit to judgment, refuse, and face extinction. Zethkar finally realized the truth. The humans weren't trying to defeat the collective. They were trying to erase it completely. In desperation, he sent peace offers. The humans could have some of their people back if they stopped the attack. They could share the galaxy if they recognized collective claims to certain systems. They could negotiate a treaty that would benefit both species. Admiral Grant's response was always the same. Unconditional surrender. Return all human prisoners. Submit all leaders for trial. Nothing else is acceptable. The war reached its climax at Zephyr Prime itself. The collective's home world was defended by their most powerful fleet and their strongest weapons. Orbital battle stations surrounded the planet, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. Admiral Grant brought her entire force to bear against the defenses. The battle raged for 3 days. Space around Zephyr Prime became a graveyard of broken ships from both sides. But slowly, steadily, the human fleet pushed forward. On the planet's surface, Zethkar made his final decision. If the humans wanted to destroy the collective, he would make sure they paid the highest price possible. He ordered the execution of all remaining human prisoners in collective space. The order went out to every prison world, every labor camp, every holding facility. Kill all humans. Leave nothing for the attackers to save. But Zethkar had forgotten something important about humans. They protected each other. The rescue ships had been working for months, slipping into collective systems ahead of the main fleet. By the time Zethkar's order reached the prison worlds, most of the human prisoners were already free. The few who remained were guarded by human marines who had arrived just hours before. Still, some executions happened. Admiral Grant received reports of murdered prisoners from 3 different systems. Men, women, and children killed out of spite, as the collective's empire fell apart. That was when President Santos authorized Protocol Omega. Admiral Grant had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but the collective had made their choice. They had chosen to murder human children rather than accept defeat. The planet crackers moved into position around Zephyr Prime. Dr. Ross had designed them to be the ultimate weapon, devices that could tear apart the very structure of a planet. They had only been tested on dead worlds, and Admiral Grant had prayed they would never need to be used. All human ships, pull back to minimum safe distance, she ordered. Prepare to implement Protocol Omega. Down on the planet, Zethkar felt the ground shake as the human weapons charged. He finally understood what was about to happen. The humans weren't just going to defeat him, they were going to make an example of him that would terrify the galaxy. For centuries to come! Wait, he transmitted frantically. I surrender! The collective surrenders! We will return your people! Admiral Grant's response was cold as space itself. You had your chance. You chose to murder our children instead. Now face the consequences. The planet crackers fired. Zephyr Prime, home to billions of collective citizens and center of their empire for 1,000 years, broke apart like an egg. The planet's core exploded, sending chunks of rock flying through space. In less than an hour, an entire world was reduced to scattered asteroids. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. This was what happened when you threatened human children. Years later, Emma Carter stood on the bridge of her own ship, the Earth's Promise. She was 30 years old now, an admiral in the Human Defense Force, and her job was to patrol the galaxy looking for any remaining signs of slavery or abuse. The girl who had once cried for help across impossible distances was now the voice of protection for every enslaved being in known space. The Terran Protection Zone covered hundreds of systems, and every species knew the simple rule: slavery was punishable by extinction. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Vega system. Unknown aliens are attacking a civilian transport." Emma smiled, but her eyes were hard. "Plot a course for Vega, maximum speed, and send a message to the attackers." "What should the message say, Admiral?" Emma thought of a scared little girl hiding underground, calling for help across the void. She thought of her parents, taken by creatures who saw humans as nothing more than food. And she thought of the promise humanity had made to never let it happen again. Tell them they have one chance to stop their attack and surrender. If they refuse, they'll learn why the galaxy fears the sound of human children crying for help. The ship turned toward Vega, carrying with it the promise that no innocent would ever be abandoned again. Emma's cry had awakened something in humanity that could never go back to sleep. The universe had learned its lesson. Some species protect their territory. Some protect their resources. But humans protect their children, no matter where they are, no matter how far away, no matter what the cost. And the galaxy was a safer place because of it. 10 years had passed since the fall of the Zephyrian Collective. The galaxy was a different place now, shaped by the fury of awakened humanity and the promise that no child would ever cry for help unanswered again. Admiral Emma Carter walked through the corridors of Sanctuary Station, the massive space facility that served as headquarters for the Human Protection Force. The station orbited Earth's moon, its silver walls gleaming in the sunlight. Through the large windows, she could see ships coming and going constantly. Human vessels mixed with alien craft from dozens of species who had joined the Protection Alliance. Emma was no longer the scared 8-year-old hiding underground. 38, she had become one of the most respected military leaders in known space. Her blonde hair was shorter now, cut in a practical military style, and her blue eyes held the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. But sometimes, late at night, she still remembered the cold darkness of those underground tunnels and the fear that help might never come. "Admiral Carter, we have a situation," called Commander Rick Hayes from the command center. Rick was Emma's second in command, a tall man with brown hair and steady hands who had joined the Protection Force after his own family was rescued from alien slavers in the Outer Rim. Emma hurried to the main display screen where Rick was studying incoming reports. The screen showed a star map with red warning lights flashing in 3 different systems. "What are we looking at?" Emma asked. 3 separate incidents, all in the past week," Rick explained. "The Andromedans in the Kepler 452 system are reporting missing colonists. The Centauri Republic lost contact with a mining ship near Wolf 359. And here," he pointed to a system on the edge of known space, "the Arcturians are asking for help investigating destroyed settlements." Emma studied the pattern. The 3 incidents were far apart, but something about them felt familiar. "Any signs of who's responsible?" "That's the strange part," said Dr. Lisa Morgan, the station's chief scientist. Lisa was a small woman with red hair and sharp green eyes who had spent years studying alien technology. Each attack used different weapons and different methods, but the results are the same: people disappearing without a trace. Emma felt a cold feeling in her stomach. After the destruction of the collective, dozens of smaller slaver groups had tried to fill the gap. Most were quickly crushed by the Protection Force, but some were smarter, more careful. "Any survivors?" Emma asked. "One," Rick said. a Centauri mining engineer named Zara Voss. She's being transported here now for debriefing. 3 hours later, Emma sat across from Zara in a medical bay on Sanctuary Station. The Centauri looked like a tall, thin human with pale blue skin and silver hair. Her large eyes showed the same fear Emma remembered from her own childhood. "Tell me what happened," Emma said gently. Zara's voice shook as she spoke. "We were working. The asteroid fields near Wolf 359. Everything was normal. Then the ships came out of nowhere. They weren't like anything I'd ever seen before." "Can you describe them?" "Black metal, but it seemed to move like liquid, and the shapes, they hurt to look at like they were wrong somehow. They disabled our ship without firing a single shot." Emma exchanged glances with Dr. Morgan. The description matched reports from the other attacks. "What happened to your crew?" Emma asked. "They took everyone except me. I hid in a maintenance shaft for 6 hours. When I came out, the ship was empty. But I heard them talking before they left." "What did they say?" Zara closed her eyes, remembering. "They said humans had made things difficult for the trade. They needed to be more careful now, more selective. And they mentioned a place. The dark market." Emma had heard whispers of the dark market before. It was supposedly a secret trading post where slavers from across the galaxy gathered to buy and sell prisoners. The protection force had been hunting for it for years without success. "Did they say anything else?" Emma asked. "Yes. They said they were building something. A weapon that would teach humans not to interfere with their business." That evening, Emma called an emergency meeting of the Protection Force command staff. The conference room was filled with humans and aliens who had all dedicated their lives to stopping slavery and protecting the innocent. General Mike Rodriguez, who had taken over from General Clark after his retirement, studied the tactical reports. Mike was a veteran of the Collective War, a stocky man with gray hair and scars on his hands from fighting alien soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. "If someone is reorganizing the slave trade, we need to stop them fast," he said. "The galaxy has gotten used to being safe. People have let their guard down. The question is how to find them," said Captain Beth Taylor, now the head of intelligence operations. Beth had spent the last 10 years tracking down the remnants of the Collective and other slaver groups. The dark market could be anywhere in unexplored space. Emma looked at the star maps covering the walls of the conference room. Somewhere out there, people were being taken from their families and sold like animals. Children were crying for help. That might not come. "We need to think like they do," Emma said. "The slavers are adapting to our presence. They're being more careful, hitting smaller targets, staying mobile. But they still need somewhere to store prisoners and conduct business." "Doctor," Morgan spoke up from her position at the science station. "I've been analyzing the attack patterns. The ships Zara described match energy signatures we detected in all 3 systems. But there's something else. The attacks happened in a specific sequence, moving in a pattern toward the galactic core." Emma stood up and walked to the main display. "Show me." Dr. Morgan brought up a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots showed where the attacks had occurred, with lines connecting them in chronological order. "They're not random," Emma realized. "They're following the old collective trade routes, but in reverse." Captain Taylor nodded. "Which means they're heading for the abandoned collective fortress world of Mordak Prime. It's been empty since the war, but it still has functional facilities." Emma felt her heart rate increase. Mordak Prime was where the collective had conducted their worst experiments on human prisoners. The Protection Force had planned to destroy the planet, but it had been considered too dangerous to approach due to automated defenses. If they're using Mordak Prime as their base, then we know where to find them, Emma said. But it won't be easy. That planet is designed to be a fortress. General Rodriguez was already working on tactical plans. We'll need a full battle group, at least 50 ships, plus Marine landing forces. No, Emma said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. We go in quiet. Small force, stealth approach. If we attack with a battle group, they'll have time to kill their prisoners or escape. Admiral, that's incredibly dangerous, Rick protested. If something goes wrong, a small force won't stand a chance. Emma looked around the room at the faces of her fellow officers. These people had become her family over the years, united by their shared mission to protect the innocent. She thought about the scared little girl she had once been, hiding underground and hoping someone would hear her. Cry for help. Sometimes you have to take risks to save people, she said. I learned that from a very good man named Jake Morrison. Commander Morrison had died 3 years earlier, finally succumbing to injuries from the collective war. But his legacy lived on in every person the Protection Force had saved. I'll take a stealth cruiser and a small team, Emma continued. If we can get close enough to confirm the dark market is there, we can call in the battle group. But if prisoners are in immediate danger, we act. The room was quiet for a moment. Then General Rodriguez smiled. Sounds like something the old days would have done. When do we leave? Tomorrow, Emma said. And Mike, make sure the battle group is ready. Something tells me we're going to need them. As the meeting broke up, Emma stood alone in the conference room, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in that darkness, people were afraid and alone, just as she had been years ago. But they wouldn't stay alone for long. The little girl who had once cried across space for help was now the one who answered those cries. And she would never stop coming. The stealth cruiser Shadow's Edge moved silently through the darkness between stars, its black hull absorbing all light that touched it. Admiral Emma Carter stood on the bridge, watching the void ahead as they approached Mordak Prime. 3 days of travel at maximum stealth speed had brought them to the edge of the abandoned collective fortress world solar system. Sensors are picking up activity, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake, the ship's sensor officer. Sarah was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and quick eyes that missed nothing on her displays. Multiple ships in orbit around the planet, at least 30, possibly more. Emma moved to Sarah's station to study the readings. The ships showed up as faint energy signatures on the passive sensors, their designs unlike anything in the Protection Force database. Can you identify the ship types? Emma asked. Negative, Admiral. They're using stealth technology I've never seen before, but the power readings suggest they're heavily armed. Besides Sarah, Chief Petty Officer Mark Turner worked at the communications station. Mark was a veteran of the collective war, a steady man with gray hair and hands that had operated every type of communication equipment the Protection Force used. I'm picking up encrypted transmissions between the ships and the planet's surface, Mark reported. Can't break the encryption, but the volume of traffic suggests major activity down there. Emma nodded grimly. The intelligence had been correct. Someone was using Mordak Prime as a base of operations, and from the number of ships present, it was a big operation. Take us closer, Emma ordered Commander Rick Hayes, who was serving as her executive officer on this mission. But keep us in the asteroid field. I want to see what we're dealing with before we commit to anything. The Shadow's Edge drifted deeper into the system, using the cover of floating rocks and debris to mask their approach. As they got closer to Mordak Prime, the full scope of what they were facing became clear. Admiral, you need to see this, Dr. Lisa Morgan called from her science station. Lisa had insisted on coming along despite the danger, arguing that her expertise in alien technology would be essential. Emma joined Dr. Morgan at her console, where a detailed scan of the planet's surface was displayed. What she saw made her blood run cold. The old collective fortress had been rebuilt and expanded. Massive prison complexes stretched across entire continents, connected by transport tubes and guarded by automated defense systems. But worse than the prisons were the other structures: laboratories, processing facilities, and what looked like massive holding pens designed for different types of creatures. "How many prisoners are down there?" Emma asked quietly. Dr. Morgan's fingers flew over her controls, analyzing the biosigns from the planet's surface. Conservative estimate: over 200,000 beings from at least 50 different species. Admiral, some of these signatures are coming from areas that look like breeding facilities. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, fighting down the rage that threatened to overwhelm her. The slavers weren't just capturing people anymore. They were breeding them, creating entire generations of slaves who had never known freedom. "There's more," Dr. Morgan continued. "I'm detecting construction of some kind of massive weapon platform in the planet's northern polar region. It's drawing enormous amounts of power from the planet's core." Commander Hayes joined them at the science station. "What kind of weapon?" "I'm not sure, but the energy patterns are similar to the planet crackers we used against Zephyr Prime. Someone is building something designed to destroy entire worlds." Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. After the collective war, the planet cracker technology had been classified at the highest levels. Only a few people on Earth even knew the weapons existed. For someone to be building similar technology here meant they had access to humanity's most closely guarded secrets. "Mark, can you boost our signal strength without revealing our position?" Emma asked. "Maybe, Admiral. But it would be risky. If they detect the transmission, they'll know we're here. Do it. We need to get word back to the fleet. This is bigger than just a slaver operation." As Mark worked to establish a secure communication link, Lieutenant Commander Blake called out from her sensor station. "Admiral, we have incoming ships. 3 vessels on an intercept course with our position." Emma rushed back to the main display. 3 sleek black ships were moving toward the asteroid field where the Shadow's Edge was hiding. Their design was elegant and deadly, with curves that seemed to flow like water, but bristled with weapon systems. "How did they find us?" Rick asked. "Doesn't matter now," Emma replied. "Can we outrun them?" Sarah Blake shook her head. "They're faster than us, Admiral. And if we run, we'll lead them straight back to the fleet." Emma made her decision quickly. "All stop. Power down everything except life support. Make us look like a dead rock." The Shadow's Edge went completely dark, drifting silently among the asteroids as the 3 alien ships approached. Emma and her crew watched on passive sensors as the hunters searched for their prey. For 20 minutes, the alien ships moved through the asteroid field, their sensors sweeping back and forth. Twice they came close enough that Emma could see their hulls through the bridge windows, black metal that seemed to absorb light and weapon ports that glowed with contained energy. Finally, the ships moved away, apparently convinced that their sensors had detected nothing more than space debris. Emma waited another hour before ordering minimal power restored to essential systems. "Mark, did you get that message out?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral. Full tactical data transmitted to General Rodriguez and the battle fleet. They should receive it in about 6 hours." Emma studied the tactical display showing the enemy ships and the fortress world below. 200,000 prisoners were down there, and someone was building a weapon that could destroy planets. The Protection Force battle fleet was still 3 days away at maximum speed. Sarah, what's the status on those ships that detected us? They've taken up patrol positions around the outer system, Admiral. Looks like they're setting up a perimeter. Emma realized the trap they were in. The alien forces knew someone was watching them, even if they hadn't found the shadow's edge yet. They would be more alert now, more careful. And if the Protection Force fleet arrived in 3 days, they would face prepared defenses and possibly the destruction of all those prisoners. Admiral, Dr. Morgan said quietly, I'm detecting increased activity at the weapons site. Whatever they're building, they're accelerating the construction schedule. Emma looked around at her small crew, 12 people against an entire fortress, world, and a fleet of unknown alien ships. The smart thing would be to wait for reinforcements. The safe thing would be to maintain their hidden position and gather more intelligence. But somewhere on that planet, 200,000 people were waiting for help that might come too late. Emma thought about 8-year-old Emma Carter, hiding underground and crying for someone to hear her voice. She thought about Jake Morrison, who had risked everything to answer that cry. And she thought about the promise humanity had made to never abandon their own. Rick, prep the shuttle, she said. We're going down there. Admiral, that's suicide. We can't fight an entire planet with one shuttle. Emma smiled, but her eyes were hard as steel. We're not going to fight them, Rick. We're going to do something much worse. We're going to give those prisoners hope. And when people have hope, they fight back. She looked out at the fortress world below, where 200,000 souls waited in darkness, for someone to hear their cries for help. Besides, Emma added, I learned a long time ago that sometimes the smallest voice can reach the farthest distance. Time to find out if it works the other way around. Commander Jake Morrison stared at the endless black space outside his ship's window. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny diamonds scattered across black cloth. His ship, the Aurora's Edge, moved slowly through the outer rim of known space. They had been out here for 3 months now, mapping new star systems and looking for planets that humans might live on someday. Jake was tired. His brown hair had grown longer than military rules allowed, and his blue eyes showed the stress of being so far from home. At 42 years old, he had spent half his life in space, but this mission felt different. They were further from Earth than any human had ever been before. Commander, we're picking up something strange, said Lisa Kane from the pilot's seat. She was young, maybe 28, with short red hair and quick hands that danced over the ship's controls. Lisa had been flying ships since she was 18, and Jake trusted her completely. Jake walked over to her station. What kind of strange? Sam is looking at it now, Lisa said, pointing to the communications area where Sam Davis sat hunched over his equipment. Sam was the ship's communications officer, a quiet man with dark skin and careful eyes. He never spoke unless he had something important to say. Jake moved to Sam's station. What do you have? Sam looked up, his face worried. It's a signal, sir. Very weak, coming from the Kepler 442 system. That's over 1,000 light-years from here, Jake said. Nothing should be out there. I know, sir, but listen to this. Sam pressed a button on his control panel. Static filled the air. Then, through the noise, came a voice, a small voice, a child's voice. Please help us. They took Mama and Papa. So hungry. Please find us. The voice was speaking English, but some words sounded different, mixed with sounds Jake had never heard before. But it was definitely a human child, a little girl. Jake felt his blood turn cold. Play it again. The message repeated. The same scared voice, the same words. Jake's hands began to shake. There were no human colonies in that system. No human ships had ever traveled that far. So how was a human child calling for help from a place that should be empty? "Alex, get over here," Jake called to the ship's engineer. Alex Rivera was a stocky man with black hair and strong hands. He knew more about space travel than anyone Jake had ever met. Alex jogged over, wiping grease from his hands with a dirty cloth. "What's going on, Commander?" "Listen to this." Sam played the message again. Alex's face went pale. "That's impossible. We haven't sent any ships to Kepler 442. "I know," Jake said, "but that's definitely a human child." "Could it be some kind of trick?" Lisa asked, joining them. "Maybe aliens trying to copy human voices?" Sam shook his head. "I've run it through. Every test I can think of. The voice patterns, the breathing, even the way she pronounces certain words. It's human. No question." Jake stood quiet for a long moment, thinking. As commander, he had rules to follow. They were supposed to finish their mapping mission and return to Earth. They weren't supposed to investigate strange signals or go off course. But a human child was calling for help. "How long would it take us to reach that system?" he asked Alex. Alex thought for a moment. 3 weeks, maybe 4 if we push the engines hard." "That would put us way behind schedule," Lisa said. "Command won't like it." Jake looked at each of his crew members. These 3 people had been with him for 2 years. They had faced dangers together, shared meals together, and become like family. He knew what they were thinking without asking. "All those in favor of investigating the signal, raise your hand," Jake said. 4 hands went up immediately. Jake smiled for the first time in days. "Sam, record a message to Earth Command. Tell them we've received a human distress signal and are investigating. Lisa, plot a course for Kepler 442. Alex, I need you to make sure our engines can handle the extra speed." "What about the regulations?" Lisa asked. "We could all face court-martial for this." Jake looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, a human child was scared and alone. Her parents were gone. She was hungry. And she was calling for help across impossible distances. "Some things are more important than regulations," he said quietly. The next few hours were busy. Alex worked in the engine room, adjusting systems and checking fuel levels. Sam tried to improve the signal quality and search for more messages. Lisa calculated their new course and prepared the ship for high-speed travel. Jake sat in his captain's chair, listening to the child's voice over and over again. Each time he heard it, he felt more sure they were doing the right thing. He had 2 children of his own back on Earth. Katie was 12 and Bobby was 9. If they were lost and scared somewhere in space, he would want someone to come looking for them. The ship began to turn, changing direction toward the Kepler 442 system. Jake could feel the engines working harder as they picked up speed. They were leaving the safety of known space and heading into the unknown. "Message sent to Earth Command," Sam reported. "They should receive it in about 6 hours. Good. Now let's see if we can clean up that signal anymore." As the Aurora's edge flew through space toward the distant system, Jake wondered what they would find when they got there. Who was this child? How did she get so far from Earth? And who had taken her parents? The stars outside seemed to watch them as they traveled into the darkness, carrying hope to a scared little girl who had somehow called across the impossible distance of space for help. Jake didn't know what dangers waited for them, but he knew they had to try. That's what humans did. They helped each other, no matter how far apart they were. The ship's engines hummed steadily as they raced toward the unknown, following the faint cry of a child lost in the vast darkness of space.